You space bastard! You killed my pan!
So we just had 2 months in a row with Friday the 13th. So that's, I don't know how regular that occurs, but interesting. So when it popped up again just the other week, that was the 13th and a Friday, I figured I had to keep the tradition going by watching the rest of this series. So, like I mentioned before, I'd seen the original on a couple occasions. I watched part 2 in October, and then last month I watched part 3 just because I felt I had to on Friday the 13th. And if you remember or watched my last review of Friday the 13th part 3, was the 3D one, it was awful. It was easily the worst movie of the series that I've seen, even though I've only seen, a couple early ones and then some later in the series. But it was bad. So the last installment was awful. This one I actually had some sort of an idea about because I'd seen parts of it. I knew that it had Corey Feldman in it. I couldn't remember. I think I mentioned in the last one. I thought that one might have been the one with Corey Feldman, but it's this one. Corey Feldman's in it, and so yeah, I'd seen some parts here and there with him and his house and his family, but I'll get to that. So this one right away, it starts out better. Well, not better. Okay, it starts out with a recap. Again, they've been doing that with each episode or each installment. They'll kind of recap the last movie. So this happens again. It has a little bit of Jason's mom from the first one, and then a lot of part 2 when the girl is dressed up as Jason's mom at the end. And then it was recapping part 3, which is kind of funny because at the end of part 3, Jason gets a machete to the head with the hockey mask on. Like I mentioned, he finally got the hockey mask last time. And I didn't remember that. That's how bad the movie was. I didn't even remember how it ended. And I just saw it a month ago. So I think that kind of tells you something right there. But anyways, so they recapped what had been happening. And if you're keeping track, or if you've seen these, parts 2, 3, and 4 are all sequentially each day afterwards. So say part 2 was Friday the 13th. Part 3 was the next day, which is actually a Saturday. And then this one is like the next day as well. So it's like a Sunday. So it's not even Friday the 13th anymore. But anyways, they do keep that going. And I don't know if I mentioned this. So the title is Friday the 13th, the final chapter. It is the 4th installment, but it's not called part 4. It's just Friday the 13th, the final chapter. So that kind of gives you an idea that maybe they're going to end the series, but we all know that they made many, many more. But anyways, so we get a recap what's happening, and the end of the last movie, they're at the farm, and Jason's laying there with a machete in his head, and this one starts with him going to the morgue, and they take him there. There's actually a couple kind of cool scenes in the morgue. They put him in the chill chest, and right before they close the door, you can see his breath comes out, and it's pretty cool. It just kind of gives you that idea. Okay, maybe he's not dead. And it was also kind of reminiscent of Halloween Part 2, where that takes place all in a hospital. This one kind of has a similar feel to it. I'm guessing Halloween Part 2 came out before this. I'm pretty sure it did. But anyways, so he's in a morgue, and he wakes up right away and offs a couple people, the mortician and one nurse. And then after that, he's heading back to the woods, heading back to Camp Crystal Lake. And this time, instead of just some random farm, they are going back to the lake, so it's a familiar setting. And right away, I'll say up front that this one is a lot better. This is probably my favorite. This is going to be my favorite installment so far after the first one. And so then we're introduced to Jason's kind of moving his way to the lake. He offs a hitchhiker, which is interesting. Then after that, we don't get to see him for quite a while. So then we're introduced to most of our characters, and it's really nice because this actually has a plot, a good plot, and with some good characters. So we're introduced to Tommy, that is Corey Feldman, a very young Corey Feldman. This is one of his first movies. He did this and then Gremlins the same year. So he's Tommy, and he lives with his older sister Trish and their mom. They live on the lake in a house, and they mention they're all together in the car, and the mom mentions that the house next to them just got rented for the week or the summer. I can't remember how long, by a group of kids. So we're back to that same formula. Group of kids. And this one's a little more interesting. It's not, camp counselors getting the camp ready or anything like that, or just going to a random farm, but they're just having a weekend. Again, it's kind of gets into those kind of cliches that we know, or cabin in the wood type situations. But the added fact of having Tommy and his family there is just interesting as well, so that adds like a different layer to it. And I was surprised when I see the kids that are going to the cabin, and right away I noticed Crispin Glover. So of course he was in Back to the Future as George McFly, and another '80s movie he was in, The River's Edge, and he's a he's a big actor. So especially in the '80s, he's in there with a group of friends. I didn't really recognize any of the other kids, except for one of the girls that's with them, Samantha, is played by Judy Aronson. Didn't recognize her name or anything, but right away I recognized her face. She is one of the girls from Weird Science, Debbie or Hilly. She's the brunette. I think it's Hilly. I just remember she's from Weird Science. The two nerdy guys in Weird Science, they get the two hot girls at the end. She's one of them. She's the brunette, so I recognized her right away. This was done a year before Weird Science, so that was interesting to see. But yeah, so there's a group of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 kids that are going to go to the cabin, and they're staying there. And so yeah, they're all just hanging out, partying and everything like that. They meet a couple twins when they're swimming and stuff, and then later they're all hanging out together at the house. And there's a lot of sexual stuff going on. They all skinny dip earlier in the day, and then later they're all trying to. Crispin Glover's character Jimmy, and then his friend are both trying to get with the twins and stuff like that. That's all going on. And then eventually we meet one other character. His name's Rob. And we'd seen him before in one of the films. I can't remember if it was part 3 or part 2, but he was looking for his sister. It must have been the last movie, because he's looking for his sister from part 2. But anyways, he's like a camper, or like a backpacker. He's out in the woods. He has like a whole backpack full of clippings about Jason and his backstory. And he's out there, and he runs into Trish and Tommy, and they meet him. So he's kind of another side character that gets involved in bits and pieces every now and then. So yeah, that's the setup. We have the partying group, and then Tommy's family in the other house. And Trisha's gonna want to kind of go with them, but then she starts hanging out with this Rob guy. And then Jason gets there, and he starts killing everybody. And so then we kind of know how that goes. All of the kills are actually pretty good. Tom Savini, the legendary makeup artist, makeup effects guy, is back. He did the original movie, the first one. So he's back. He has some really good work here. It's definitely noticeable. Of course, there's a random, gratuitous nudity shot of a girl going skinny dipping by herself and swimming over into a raft. This has happened multiple times in this series. I mentioned before that there's a part earlier in the day when they're all skinny dipping, but then later it's the Samantha girl gets upset and she goes off by herself, and of course she's by herself. She's gonna go skinny dip solo at night. But that doesn't turn out too well for her. So yeah, Jason makes his way through all the different people. He's killing them all off, and then eventually it gets down to Tommy and his sister and Rob. They're kind of the last stand at their house, and of course you don't really want to see Tommy die because he's just a little kid. He's got to be like 9 or 10 or something like that. So that's kind of the last stand is with him, and everything's really good. The movie was going really great. I liked it, and then it just, I don't know, once they get towards the last couple kills, it just turns into like cheesy acting and just horrible cliche mode. And it's just really funny because the girl that plays Trish is a really bad actress, and it really shows towards the end. And it's all kind of kicked off by this random line. You think Rob's going to be there to like help protect him a little bit, but then he just goes in the basement, gets attacked by Jason, and he literally screams out, "He's killing me!" And he's like says it like 4 times, "He's killing me!" And then like after that, it's just like cliches and cheesiness, and I don't know, it was just kind of funny. It takes such a weird turn there. But yeah, I don't want to tell you how it ends. I'm sure a lot of people have seen it, but it does have a bit of a twist ending, and you think that Jason's going to be done for good, but I'll just leave it there. Like I said, the kills are all really good. They're really effective. There's some pretty original ones. It has an interesting pace to it. It's really it starts out really intense with Jason killing like the nurse and the mortician and stuff and a hitchhiker. But then after that, it's kind of slow paced, and it's really nice though because it lets you get introduced to all the characters. We have the family and then the kids, and we're introduced to all that nicely. And it's like slow paced, and you don't see Jason very much. Similar to you don't see Mrs. Voorhees in the first one. Even with some of the kills, you see the kills, but you don't specifically see him in his face. And he has the hockey mask now. I thought it was kind of nice, just so it's kind of keep some of that mystery going a little bit. And then later they show him kind of in the part when Rob starts screaming, "He's killing me," is when they just let it fly, and you just see him the rest of the movie pretty much. So yeah, I mentioned at the beginning, I really like this one. It's kind of easy to like this after the last one because the last one was so bad. I'm giving this a 3.25 out of 5. I didn't look before this, but I like the original one's good. The second one was decent. I don't know if this might be a little bit higher than the second one, but definitely worth checking out. I'd say you could probably skip the third one. The only good thing really about the third one is the fact that he gets his hockey mask. That's kind of I mentioned in that review. It's kind of interesting to see how he got it, but then they kind of ruined that too. So this is definitely worth a watch. I don't know when the next Friday the 13th will pop up, but I'm already this far in. I'm 4 in. I'll probably keep going just to finish out the series eventually. But yeah, I'd check this one out. It's worth a watch if you're looking for a horror slasher and you've kind of run the gamut of all the originals and need something new. So check it out. Friday the 13th, the final chapter. He's killing me!